Darker Than Blue by Willis and Shantae of Positive Light Ministry. And we have them live in the studio for their monthly section of the Coonram Report entitled Positive Perspective. Welcome to the Coonram Report. May the peace and blessings of the life-giving creative spirit be upon you and upon your family. My name is Melvin Ishmael Johnson, coming at you live from Skidrow Studios. Our call-in number is 800-893-9562. You can listen to us live or download our show and any past show by Googling in skidrow.la and hit Coonram Report. Now, this week on the Coonram Report, we will have a conversation with the director of Girl Blue. She's also a playwright and part of the Roby Theater Advanced Playwriting Program, Marlo White. My co-host, Earlene Anthony, will be talking to writer and poet Aria Clymer, and Willis Boyd and Shantae Duncan will host their monthly section, Positive Perspective. I would like to start our discussion off with Marlo. Marlo, welcome to the Coonram Report.
Thank you for having me.
Now, before we get to, can you talk about before we talk about the Girl Blue, can you tell our listening audience a little about your background?
I'm originally from the Midwest. I'm from Kansas City, Kansas, and I have a theater background. I graduated from Howard University, and I left Howard University and moved to New York and had the opportunity to work with the Negro Ensemble Company. And I kind of cut my teeth in New York working as an actor, worked in the box office, did a lot of different things in theater. And then I moved to Los Angeles to pursue a career in film and television. I got my first, my SAG card doing a film called The Riot with Cicely Tyson. And so I was so excited for that. As an actor working in Los Angeles, I realized that there weren't a lot of roles that that really captured the essence of the culture of urban people, of people of color. And so I began to write, and it turned into, one thing led to another. Now I primarily am a playwright, and I spend most of my creative time doing that. And I act a little bit on the side, as you know. I was performed in one of your pieces, but primarily that is what I do now. So,
how did you get involved with the Roby Advanced Playwriting Program?
I remember when I had written plays before, mostly short pieces, and had written a lot of things for children. And I wanted to do a full-length play, and I knew that I needed some training and to kind of hone my skills in that. And so I think I received an email from a friend. I don't remember specifically, for it was about 4 or 5 years ago. And I submitted some of my pieces to the Roby Theater Company, and they accepted me into the Playwrights Program. And under the guidance of Aaron Haney, I kind of really honed my skills and learned so much about, plot and character and things like that. So what I came to the table with, they were able to enhance and really, help me to create and get an understanding of what it is to be a writer and what it is to put a play together and.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the plays that came out of that, you've had a few readings of that, was called She.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little about that and the progress of it?
She is doing well now. Actually, I've been submitting and getting a lot of positive feedback from it. I'm working on getting it produced. It is definitely ready to go out. Worked with different dramaturgs on it and sent it to New York and things like that and got feedback. So it's a coming-of-age story about a young girl who grew up in a small town who has a very neglectful mother and wants more to life than what that small town can offer her. And she wants to be a writer. And she gets an opportunity to go to a very expensive boarding school. And she receives a letter from school, and she loses the letter. and she's afraid to tell her mother. And she can't find the letter, and she spends a significant amount of time finding this letter because she needs her mother to sign it to give her permission to go. But we find out that her mother had the letter all the time. So, things happen. There's a conflict there with parents letting go and allowing their children to become, the best that they can be, and that fear there of, it deals with a lot of different elements. It's laced with poetry because since she is a writer, I have her character speak in verse, often when she's afraid or when situations get rough for her. So we see her go on this journey, and, she has to deal with life as an adult because her mother can't afford to let her go to this school and pay for it. And so she does whatever. This little girl, gets put in adult situations trying to earn money for the summer to pay, to get to this school. And so we watch what happens.
Now, let me ask you this. What do you see as the role of the Black female playwright in theater?
Well, I can't speak for, people in general as a Black female playwright. I can say what I feel my role is. I think one of the things that I'm so interested in and so excited about is capturing the true culture, the language, the nuances that I don't think are portrayed on television. They have to be safe with the rules, and I think theater allows you to really explore that. I love being from Kansas. I grew up with my uncles, a lot of uncles, and they helped raise me. So I grew up with men with such colorful language, and to see that kind of love there where other people would judge it. And just there's a subculture, for lack of a better word, I'll say subculture, that is in the urban communities, in the Black communities, in the Latina communities, in the younger generations, first generations of the Korean Americans and Muslim Americans and Armenian Americans that we are not, I think we're missing out on. And I'm lucky because I live in Koreatown, and I volunteered at a school where it's primarily Armenian, first generation Armenian American children, and seeing the different culture and all the things that the media, that television and theater are kind of letting fall by the wayside. It's a gold mine of beautiful voices, and just, it's so much here in Los Angeles that I don't think that we get to see on television. And I think that as a writer myself, I think that it's my responsibility because I know it, I live it, I am it, and who better to write it than me,
Now, what is your process for writing?
I'm inspired by a lot of things. I have a car, but I don't use it very much because there's a huge part of me that has that New York blood, and so I walk a lot and I ride the bus. And I am inspired by the people on the 14 bus. That's my favorite bus. That bus, you just put a camera on there and just roll it. We could have, but just my
That's
process.
The Beverly bus.
Yes. But I came back I went to Ghana for the first time. I went to Africa last summer. So I can't say that I have a process. I see something, I'm inspired by it, and I want to write about it. I don't like things that are surface. I love relationships, not just male-female relationships, but familial relationships. People, when they have relationships with their mothers and how difficult that is, and the what seems like a difficult time, but the love is always in the pain that we see, and even on television. And so I can't really say what my process is. I think of people, and I start with people who interest me. And I say, I'm on the bus and I go, I wonder what their life was when they were born. Did their mother dream of them being, going into rehab or whatever it may be, or what does she do for a living? And I see these people, or the bus driver who sometimes he'll help somebody and sometimes he's screaming at somebody or somebody, and you kind of like, what if? So I really start there, and then I create a life or story around just everyday people, which I love, who to me are very extraordinary. I find the lives to be extraordinary, or the possibility of what I can create to be extraordinary.
So your pieces are character driven. Do you work from an outline? When you're working with your play, do you outline in the whole script as a whole?
No.
The work scene? Okay, you just
no, I don't. For instance, she actually started out to be about a young girl who was a twin. She had a twin brother, and her mother loved the boy, and she abused the girl. And so the girl wanted to become, she wanted to get a sex change. She wanted to become a boy so she could receive the love from her mother. So that's what she started out. It ended up to be something completely different. So, I know people say this is kind of cliche, but some things speak to you, and you know, one of the things that I do is I believe in God. And I always ask God or my angels and ancestors to write through me, whatever the story may be. Like, what am I supposed to be saying? And so, I mean, if you consider that's a process, that's something that I do every time I do sit down and write. I write everything by hand because I like to be tactile and touch. And I don't touch the computer and enter anything until I'm ready to its finite. So I'm saying, this is the scene that I want, and then I put it in. So I have notebooks and scribbles of paper when I'm on the bus or when I'm walking or I'm sitting down in a cafe, and I'm like, oh, maybe, and somebody will do something that will make me say, that's what my character, that would be a good, So.
Yeah, I like to do the same thing, too. I like to write. I just like the feel of the pencil, the thoughts moving in that direction.
Yes.
Who are some of the writers that influence you?
I love poets. I love Langston Hughes. I love Zora Neale Hurston. I love a lot of the old Harlem Renaissance. There's a woman who wrote a play called The Darkest Child. I think it's not Dorothy West, but I forget her name. But I love Isabel Allende. So I like people who really capture the humanity, the human spirit, and just very simple stories about everyday life and everyday people. And so I think that, of course, Langston Hughes does that. Zora Neale Hurston, of course, with the language that she created with Their Eyes Were Watching God, and Alice Walker. So just a lot of, people from back in the day. I watch a lot of PBS.
Okay. Hey, let's talk about Girl Blue for a while. What can you explain to our listening audience? What is Girl Blue?
Girl Blue is a self-awareness program that I started in 2003 for teen girls. When I was volunteering at the school, I think it was Los Feliz Elementary School at the time, there was, I think I had sixth grade, and there was a young girl who was she was a young black girl, to be specific. And she was, matter of fact, I think she was the only black girl in the class, mostly Latino and Armenian children. And she happened to be, she was in the sixth grade, and she was probably on a first or second grade reading level, because I had to help them with their reading and things like that. And I'm helping her, and I'm like, why is she in this class? How did she even get this far? Because she just couldn't read. Part of it was because I can tell she was dyslexic, but her, she was just kind of passed on. And when we would go to recess, all the girls, I noticed the boys would play and they'd run around, and the girls would sit and they would eat the little Lunchables, and they'd sit there and do nothing. And I'm kind of, like I said, I'm from Kansas. I grew up where you go outside, you play all day, you don't sit around adults, you don't sit around. And so I was like, you have a hula hoop, you have a jump rope, you have this ball. They were all in the classroom, but they never used them. And so I would watch them on the playground and see the difference between the girls. The boys had so much confidence and they were willing to try anything, and the girls were just so afraid of everything. And I was like, what is that about? And I got the jump ropes out and I taught them how to jump rope. I was so surprised that they didn't know how to do that. Jump rope, not double dutch, nothing difficult, just one rope. And so the boys started jumping in, and it became a big thing. Then everybody was fighting over the rope, and I was like, and to see this one little girl who she would kind of sit by herself a little bit. She had one friend, and I asked the teacher, because I was a volunteer, so it wasn't my watch. I couldn't really say anything. And they went on a field trip to go to the junior high school, because they were going to go to this junior high school. And I said, she's going to be in the 7th grade, like where you take more than one class. I don't, how is this going to happen? And he said to me that the mother won't allow, they can't flunk a child without their mother's permission. They can't hold her back, I should say. And so I was like, well, what do you mean you can't? But she can't read. She can't, it broke my heart so bad, because I feel like as a Black woman, I always tell I said, she's part of the tribe. She's one of my people. She's me. And so I would go out and buy these little workbooks to help her read. And this is how bad she couldn't read. It would say grade 1. And she was like, well, what is this? And I said, this means level 1. This means just as the first level. I didn't tell her that she was on a first grade, that she was reading a first grade book, doing a first grade workbook. She's in the 6th grade. And she believed, because she can't read it to understand. And that breaks my heart, because we have, I don't think people understand the importance of just reading to a child and the freedom that it gives you. And our culture, I've been watching a lot of Rivers to Cross with Henry Louis Gates on PBS. Mm-hmm. And just to see the fight to have the rights to go to school and to learn, and the intelligence of these 16, 17, and 18-year-old people who are going to get beat every day so they could read and vote. And here we have this, and the kids don't want to go to school. So it was kind of breaking my heart. It really did break my heart. I would come home to my friend every day and complain, oh, these kids don't know how to read and they don't do anything, And she was like, well, why don't you do something about it? You keep complaining. Mm-hmm. And I looked at her, because she's like, you come home every day after you volunteer and you complain. And I was like, you're right, I do. And I didn't want to be that person who always had something to say but nothing to offer. Mm-hmm. And when I was at Howard University, we did Everyman Street Theater in the summer. And so the college students would volunteer, and the kids in the neighborhood. And Marion Barry, at the time, he would fund this, So he did a lot of good. I see him as somebody that was really good for that city. Mm-hmm. And we would take the kids out and create theater around them. And they would go to different blocks in the neighborhood, and we'd set up the lights and everything and just perform right in the neighborhood on the street. And it was amazing. And I saw that, so coming from that, I said, that's what I'm going to do, but I'm going to incorporate the things that young girls need to know so they can be confident, so they can go to school and say, I can do this, I can read and not be afraid. And so that's how the Girl Blue Project developed. I had no money, no place. Everything fell in place. People were giving me things for free. I had a space for free. Mm-hmm. I just started picking up the phone and asking people if they would be on board. And everybody said yes. And in 1 month, we put the program together, and we had 12 girls our very first year, mostly girls in foster care, but we have, we work with anybody. It's a free program. They get, and I put together a curriculum that I thought would be beneficial. If I had a child or had a daughter, I would want her to have all these things, because I know that as a woman that she would need them someday. Mm-hmm. And so they take etiquette and yoga every single day. And we got a therapist on board who was willing to give them group therapy twice a week. And then because I'm an artist, I think that kids learn better when they're creative. And so I think the performing arts is a great tool to teach children anything. Mm-hmm. It builds confidence, and it allows them to just be who they are. There's no wrong. You can't write the story wrong. You can't, paint a painting wrong. Okay. And so that's how it started out. And I just organized it, and I got people on board, and it was an amazing thing, and it just kind of grew, and we celebrated our 10th year anniversary last year.
Okay, one more question, and then I'm going to ask you to give us contact information for that. That's about the name. Why Girl Blue? The name?
I actually wrote a piece called about a young girl who was molested by her cousin. And the piece is called Blue. And it's part of a three-piece thing now. Before it just started out as Blue, and it was the basis of Girl Blue, about a girl who, whatever she's gone through and the things that young girls go through, and so many people don't realize the number of women who are molested by family members. It doesn't always have to be in the news. It's just something you deal with. And even when I went to Africa, it's just a part of being a woman, the vulnerability of just being a woman and walking down the street and somebody saying something obscene to you about your body or how you walk or what you look like. I don't think men really understand how that affects the psyche of a young child. I've seen little girls. I saw a little girl with her sister. She was just walking across the street to the store, but in front of the store was a group of men. And she was walking with her sister, and she looked up and she saw them, and she stopped. And so I walked her past them. And I said, what instinctively in that little girl knew that she didn't want to walk across, just across, she didn't want to walk in front of them. She stopped. And a little boy would never have done that. He would have just, because even that young, you know that you're vulnerable just because you are female. And it's, I wrote a piece about that, and it deals with that and how you can still overcome that you can shine. And so, the girl's name was Blue. And so I just said Girl Blue Project. And,
All right. One more thing. For those who want to support Girl Blue, how can they get involved?
They can donate. One of the things about Girl Blue that people nobody gets paid. We don't have employees. I don't get paid. I use my savings up to start the program and fund it. We pay the teachers, but it's a free program. The girls pay absolutely nothing. We got their supplies for them, yoga mats, whatever they would need. And so we wanted, we didn't want money to be an issue of why people didn't participate, because that always seems to come up. But we found out in life that it's really not about money. You make a commitment, you can make a commitment. And so it's actually changing. The 10 years we've been working with teen girls. And so now what I've done is when I went to Africa, and it's always going to be about empowerment. We're doing different things. So each year, because we're so small, even though we've been going on for 10 years, we're small, but we're strong. And so I'm branching out. When I went to Africa, and we worked in an orphanage and donated. I've donated a lot of money to this specific orphanage in Takoradi, Ghana, and sent a barrel of books. They don't have books there. And so you have the same situation with girls there as well, second-class citizens. And we are in America, too. I don't think that we really... we are. I mean, we have some, we have some Oprahs and some Condoleezas and some Hillary Clintons, but still the attitude toward women, I think, is more like, And so, but now it's moving toward that. So this, we did a benefit for HIV because, the statistics say that most, the new person who's catching HIV now are Black women. So that's what we're gearing towards. And you can donate if you go to our website, which is thegirlblueproject.org, and you can donate. 100% of your money goes to benefit whatever project we're working, whether all of it goes to send books to Ghana or empower girls if we have the summer program, or raise funds for HIV. So we're always doing something completely different. But I always let people know if they donate. None of the money comes to me or any of the board members, not a penny.
Okay. We'll come back for closing comment and contact information. And I hope you apply for that youth grant.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really important. Before the month.
I'm running out of money.
Okay. Thank you, Marlo.
Thank
now,
you.
we'll come back in the latter part of our show for some closing comments and contact information. Now I'd like to turn it over to my co-host, Earlene Anthony.
Hi. We have in the studio with us also Ariel. Welcome to the Qumran Report.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Tell our listeners briefly about your background, a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Let's see. I'm an educator. Currently, I'm a teaching assistant, and I've worked in a lot of different areas of education, a lot in camps and tutoring. And now I'm working in an actual school, so I'm excited about that. And I'm also a bike mechanic, and I dabble in gardening and herbal medicine and a lot of different things. And I like to write poetry, too.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on cycling here in Los Angeles, riding your bike?
Well, I love cycling, and I think that there's a lot of different groups of people that cycle in LA, and I think that, cycling has really exploded in terms of it being both something fun to do and something useful to do in the city in the last 10 years. There's always been people who've ridden their bikes to work because they don't have the money for a car or the bus or just like riding to work. But I think the people that want to cycle to hang out with friends or to use their bike to make money or do different things like that, the percentage of people doing that has really risen in the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. There's rides all over the city every single night of the week. You can find a ride somewhere to go on with a group of people and to have a fun time.
Mm-hmm, like Ciclavia.
Yeah, Ciclavia.
Close down the whole city.
Things like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Tell us about the city connection to nature and gardening here in Los Angeles you talk about.
Let's see. There's a lot. Recently, researchers from UCLA did a project. I'm not sure how long it took them. I imagine it took them a very long time to map out all of the local community gardens and school gardens all across Los Angeles. And there are a lot more gardens than you would imagine. And I think using that map, you can see kind of how the boom is going alongside with cycling. It's also happening in gardening. Mm-hmm. And I think that's thanks in part to the Master Gardeners program coming out of UCLA too. And the people within the Master Gardener program are not just interested in having everyone have a green thumb. They're very interested in especially helping. Kind of what I've heard from behind the scenes is that, they're a group that are interested in teaching, especially low-income people across the city, how to provide food for themselves and not rely on bigger systems to get their food. And so that's really important to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us about some of your thoughts on education in the Los Angeles area. Especially the young people.
That's an education. Education can go a lot of different ways. There's ways that you can kind of see education as a creating transitions for people, to becoming from a child to an adult and going, back into the system, becoming a worker and just providing for themselves. And then you can also see education as a transformational process, and that it's not just for people to get a job and, pay their bills, but it's a way to expand their minds. And I think that you find there are transformational educators and there's just transitional educators. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to look outside of the regular public school to find those people, and sometimes you don't. But I think I'm trying to connect myself with the more transformational educators.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because actually, that's how I met you up at the USC. There's a group of kids we work with called the Peace Kids, and that's how I met you. Yeah. Also, you are a writer. Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you want to do one of your poems for us here live in the studio?
Yeah, sure. Let me look it up really quick.
And then after the poem, you can briefly give us your final comments and your contact information.
Okay. This is a poem I wrote when I worked for an LAUSD outdoor school. And I had been thinking about, I was kind of listening to the kids talk about what it meant. Well, watching the kids' reaction to coming from the city to the countryside. Last year, that was kind of a theme in my creative work and thought process, because I grew up in the country, and being in the city is such a different thing. And it was interesting being the person to introduce kids from the city to the mountains. And I have a lot of friends that are second generation Latino people, and it's also kind of like a thought process on their experience of having relatives that grew up in the countryside, maybe grandparents or great-grandparents, but they've only grown up in the city. And the poem's called Sochi. It's called Sochi. And the beginning of it is an actual quote from a student, first line. The trees, the mountainside, looks like wallpaper. And yes, the wallpaper on a computer. Are those real? Do they even look real? Are we in the mountains? A winding trail teaches her balance, the agility of her body, that the tips of toes serve both the mountain goat and the human girl. The native Mexican blood that courses down to her bare feet knows the difference between the white sage and that bubblegum plant, between an ant and a tick. She feels her blood now, realizes it's there. It comes out in scratches, punctures, rambunctious falls. Her distant cousin, a nomad with 2 houses, living large it seems, but really just flowing up water, down sun with the seasons in the largest canyon in the world, La Barranca. A stop and catch, each scent allows for identification. Even if every bug she finds, she classifies with her own made-up names. Ronaldo, Gerald, Melanie, Monse. Monse's kids, her cousins, her pets. She focuses in with wide eyes, a couple of hairs deep underneath fade, a soft snowy shade, as her teachers explain the different uses of a yucca. How best to water a plant, intentional cleansing of the roots, healing in the darkest places. She takes less showers, lets her hair be braided, leaves it down, brushes it long, long, long. Spiders live comfortably now beneath her foot, used to hover over, now her hand forms a cradle. The tickle of a curious beetle sends warmth instead of goosebumps. That hill seems flatter now. The mountains are real. They are a home. Thanks.
Wow, I love it. That's great. Thank you, Ariel.
Yeah.
Now we're going to turn it back over to our host.
Okay, we're going to go past our community calendar and jump in blues, and we're going to go right into a positive perspective. And I'm going to open that up with the song Positive Light.
Good evening. I am Sergeant Leroy Straka, and this is Private First Class Positive, and this is Private First Class Perseverance. We are Positive Light Ministries, and we are Strikers Patrol. Private First Class Perseverance.
Sir, yes, sir.
Why do they call you Perseverance?
Sir, yes, sir. Romans 5:3 says, but we also rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. They call me Perseverance because I never give up. I always find a way. When the work seems hard, I have faith God will give me the strength. Like when you come to a mountain, you either need to go over, under, around, and through. God will help me, but I never give up.
God bless you, Private First Class Perseverance. Private First Class Positive.
Sir, yes, sir.
Ready to do the song?
Sir, yes, sir.
You know I love to shine it positive and shine it bright. It makes no difference if it's day or it's night. You see, God tries to fight from the heavens above, and He gives it to us so we can try to show you His love. His love is Jesus, name of all names. Accept Him in your heart, and your life will never be the same. So now you know. Will you be positive? It's up to you. It's your prerogative.
Around with money and things, but my head was hanging down. Cause it was all about me, blink. What can you do for me? See, saw a man walking around with a positive glow and a Bible in his hand. He was teaching a lesson. He told me about Jesus, got me going in another direction.
I love Jesus. We love Jesus. Jesus loves you. Do you love Jesus? Jesus loves you. Private first class positive.
Sir, yes, sir.
Why do they call you positive?
Sir, 1 Thessalonians 5:11 says, therefore encourage one another and build each other up. If I see a situation that others might think hopeless, I will find a way to make it right, sir.
Private first class positive.
Sir, yes, sir.
Double tap.
Wow, Melvin, that's taking us way back. Okay. My name is Willis Boyd.
And I'm Shantae Duncan, and we have in studio with us tonight Miss Mello.
And
you
you're
are listening to Positive Perspective,
where we shine the positive light of Jesus Christ on scripture, music, our communities, and world issues. Tonight, we're going to have an in-studio discussion on some scriptures. The first one being 1 Corinthians 10:23. That scripture reads, all things are lawful for me, meaning all things are lawful for us. Now, I would like you guys to participate in this. So what does that mean to any of you, if you would care to participate? All things are lawful for us, the Bible says.
Sorry.
If I would just hear it just like you said it, I would think I can do whatever I want to. I'm not beholden to anyone. I don't have to explain anything. I can do just what I want to do, and, you know,
Right.
nobody got no say-so.
Anybody else?
But-
Go ahead. Yeah.
There's no period right there that continues on, so we'll talk about that later.
Right. So?
Yeah, I agree with Erlene that God gives us the freedom to do what we want,
Anybody else? Or
taking it from them.
don't be scared.
It sounds like to me that the Lord has faith in you, that things are lawful. It's like a big choice, like a smorgasbord. But I'm waiting for the catch. So. It's all out there on the buffet, but I'm waiting for instruction. You know what I mean?
Okay,
So I'm
yeah.
waiting for part two.
Okay, yeah. So the scripture goes on to say, but all things are not helpful and all things are not edifying. So what does that mean to?
There's the instruction.
Yeah.
If you choose something, let's say it's a smorgasbord, the world is this whole big buffet. And if you choose something that is not good for your body, you're going to suffer. You're going to get a tummy ache. And you can take that metaphysically, figuratively or literally. So,
Yeah, I was going to say basically the same thing. You know, all things are lawful, meaning that we have free will, so we can choose the right path or the wrong path. It's our choice, but we will suffer the consequence.
By being not helpful or edifying, meaning suffering the consequences. Anybody else? Don't be scared.
Well, we make choices, but all the choices we make are not helpful or edifying to us.
Right.
But at the time we make them, we just make them based on whatever, I guess, information we have. But then later on down the line, it may come up that the choices I made years ago were not helpful or edifying to me or other people.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd agree with them that you said all things are lawful, so we have the freedom to do it as we please, but we have to question whether our actions are beneficial to us or beneficial to other people.
Yeah, I'd say so. Okay, our next scripture is Romans 14:12 through 13, and that scripture says, "So then each of us shall give an account of himself or herself to God. Therefore let us not judge one another anymore, or not put stumbling blocks in each other's ways, or cause our brothers and sisters to fall." Was that clear enough, or can I get a response to that?
Well, it's something like what Marlo was saying earlier about helping these young people. We should always be concerned with trying to help people instead of hurting people, especially young people, in terms of guiding them, putting them on the right path, especially the roads that we've already walked on, in terms of showing them the right way as opposed to the wrong way.
And I didn't know it at the time, but now that you just read it, that's one of the lines in my play, Stone in the Road.
Oh, yeah?
How do you handle stumbling blocks on your road to success, and how do you remove them from others?
Oh, okay.
Really
Yeah. Anybody else care to take?
Yeah, what they were saying along the lines of having that freedom, and you said how our actions will be held account to God for what we do, and being mindful of whether our actions are a stumbling block for someone else, and questioning ourselves in that if our actions are they a stumbling block for other people, and being mindful of how we live.
Yeah, but so God gives us on this earth total freedom, right? I mean, all things are lawful. So we are free to do whatever we want to do.
That's right.
Is that accurate? I mean, that's what the scripture says.
That's what it says.
But you have to give an accountability unto the Lord.
Yeah.
Well, we have free will, but our action, the consequences of our action, because I like to take it a little bit farther and say that we live under the concept of karma, the universal law of cause and effect, in terms of that, if you do good deeds, you're going to receive good deeds. You do bad deeds somewhere down the line.
You really think, though, that that's accurate, where I've seen cases where people are really good and do a lot of good things, and bad things happen to them regardless. So you think the karma thing is really accurate, or... I mean, in most cases, or there's a lot of bad things happen to really good people.
Well,
and then in a lot of cases, we think that person is good according to our judgment.
Whoa,
that's right.
A lot of times, hey, that person that, I like to say they accumulated a lot of bad karma in their life, in their early life, before you come in contact with them. Now they've changed. We look at them, we see that good person, but we don't know that person from the time that they were born all the way up until that point. Yeah.
Right.
You're going to...
No, I just, for me, I normally stay out of discussions about religion but I feel that when you said bad things happen to good people, that is a judgment. I think just life happens to us, and I think it's how you respond, is what you do, what your reaction is to the things that happen to you in your life that create the life that you want. I mean, it may seem bad, but I mean, if you want to get biblical, I mean, something bad happened to Jesus. People would consider that a bad thing, but then there's other people who would argue, who believe that, well, if he didn't die for us, where would we be today? So I think,
So are you saying basically that it can make you stronger when when life happens, it makes you stronger?
I don't know. I'm learning to be, for me, very non-resistant. I'm learning to accept my life as it is, every little thing that happens, and to not judge it, but to accept it. Because when I was younger, things that I thought were bad at the time that were happening to me were probably the best. I'm glad it happened. Mm-hmm. Relationships, you're just like, oh God, I wish I never would have met him. But it's like, but
it made you stronger.
It made me stronger. It just made me who I am, and it changed me. It
made you smarter.
Yeah, it's part of your life. I mean, everybody has a purpose. I believe that. I think that. Why are certain people born into poverty? Why are certain people born wealthy? You make do with what God has brought you into this world with. I mean, there are a lot of people who are very wealthy who commit suicide and go on drugs. They're so unhappy. And so that's why I'm saying that I'm learning to not judge it, because, you complain. You'll see somebody and it's like, oh, well, he had everything. Why would he commit suicide? But you don't know people's life. So you can't say that he had this fabulous life.
Melvin was saying they might have accumulated, or
I don't know. I'm willing to say that I don't know. All I know is that things are going to happen to me in my life. There are going to be things that I don't want to happen. I wish that I didn't gain 40 pounds, but it happened. You know what I mean?
But you know how to remedy that though too, right?
Yes, but
it happened. It just didn't happen by itself.
But there are other people who do the same thing that I do that it won't happen to them. Okay. Do you know?
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I'm just saying, but I don't look at it as a bad. I'm just using it as
because
a joke,
of our time. We have to cut this short, but it's to sum up everything. The Bible says that. I mean, those two scriptures combined. It is, let us not seek our own, but we should always think of others first. Mm-hmm. In other words, we can do what we want, but hopefully you won't drink in front of an alcoholic. That's putting a stumbling block, or give a person drugs and do that sort of things. But God's word wants us to think of others first before we do ourselves. And I think that's a beautiful lesson. And I'm going to hand it over to Shantae right now.
Okay. It's a great study. I just want to thank everyone for participating. We have a brilliant guest in studio tonight by the name of Miss Mello. Miss Mello, welcome to Positive Perspective.
Thanks a lot. I heard a lot of great things all evening. That's really cool.
Okay, so you're a poet, writer, and performer. Can you tell us how you got into that?
Oh, man. Well, let's see. I'm a youthful middle-aged person now, but I've been involved in poetry since I was like third grade, modern dance since junior high. I spent a lot of time, in the 80s, I was dancing in Japan as a soul-trained choreographer. But in the 90s, I worked out a lot of things in Leimert Park,
Mm-hmm. Great. And where do you get your inspiration from?
Well, you know what? I read a lot. I even came into the studio with a Langston Hughes autobiography, The Big C.
Okay.
And I have some favorite writers from the Renaissance, so I really like, what the Sister Marlowe is doing. I like that.
Okay. And would you like to do a piece for us?
Well, thank you. I'm going to do an excerpt from a piece that's like from the 90s, actually. And it's called Nefertiti on Sunset. And I'm going to dedicate this to any woman that's been struggling, that's went through homelessness or anything. And it's Women's History Month. So it's an old piece, you guys. And it's kind of like a talk sing.
Okay, great.
I saw new Nefertiti. She was over near sunset, looking for a dream to come true. And everyone around her, they were so proud. And somebody said, hey, baby, your dream's going to come true. Well, I'm going to take your high road, and I'm going to take the real road. And I know I'm going to come through. Quintessential beauty, burning through eternity. That's going to be mine for sure. I'm going to the top. Never coming back, never coming back. But then what about Sister Sheba? Living on a city street. I know life there ain't sweet. She's in need of your love. Where's your love? Where's your love? She said, Mama, what's up with Hollywood? Daddy, I'm going to make something to me. There must be some way I can find what I need. I got a one-track mind. I'm going to leave this past behind. I'm going to the top, and I swear I'll never stop. She put on her armor. She took it to the streets. The only way she could stand it all, she had to listen to her inner beat. She offered up her talent, the world wanted more. You know they wanted more. She said, this body temple here, it ain't for sale. Because I know I am the best dancer, the finest dresser, and I can act too. I'm never going back unless I want to show you what I made of myself. And what does it matter to you? She looked around the world. She said, your world is your stage, but this is my stage. What does it matter? What doesn't matter? And I know, but this is my world. So this new Nefertiti, she put her whole thing together. And this Nefertiti, she could be in Ghana. She could be in Zambia. She could be in Copenhagen. She could be in Marrakesh, Morocco. But she's going to put her talents together. She's going to put her blessings together. She's going to put on her armor. And when she goes out in the world, you're going to notice her. This is a new Nefertiti. It's her day. Thank you.
All right.
That's great. Thank you. During your performance at open mic, you were just really moving and twirling and using the whole stage and just a lot of energy. And I just wanted to know if a lot of your performances involve that.
Heck yeah. Because I come from a dance background, and Wednesday, which is this week, I'll be featured at the World Stage, a performance gallery. They have a workshop, and I think the way it goes, 7 to 10, the first 30 minutes, workshop, then the feature, then the second part. And I guarantee you I'm coming in the zone, costume, and I'll just, get the stuff off the page.
Right.
So
Okay.
please come.
And we noticed at the open mic as well that you were facing the wall before you went on stage. And we were just kind of curious as to why you were doing that.
I was getting in character.
Okay. Figured. And is there an overall message that you try to portray or just promote in your work?
Coming up in the early 70s around school teachers that really got into Paul Laurence Dunbar and the early poets and the Renaissance writers, I think we should get back to it. It's something that they gave us. I mean, in the 20s, it's just like jazz, like getting back to Duke Ellington and Satchmo, Zora Neale Hurston. When we get back to these writers, man, we realize that the stuff is just so bountiful, and it's underneath our rock and roll. It's underneath our George Clinton and our Sly Stone. So you saw me, I was actually portraying Zora Neale Hurston, and I had to get into it.
I just want to thank you so much for being our guest on Positive Perspective, everyone. That was Miss Mello.
Miss Mello.
Blues Poet, thank you so much. And everybody else is really great. I love this program. Thank you.
We're going to toss it back over to you, Mr. Melvin.
Okay, thank you, Willis and Shantae, with Positive Perspective, a beautiful little section. Let's go around and quickly get some closing comments and contact information. We got about 45 seconds each to give that. Let's start off with Marlo.
Do you want our website, if you want to contribute or donate, is www.thegirlblueproject.org.
Okay.
I would just encourage everyone out there to get involved with Ciclovia. It's happening on April 6th. If you need to fix your bike before you get out there, you can come to any of the community bike co-ops in Los Angeles. You can Google them online or come to the one closest to here called Bici Libre, where I volunteer.
If you would like more information about Positive Light Ministries, our website is positivelight.org, and you can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/wearepositivelight.
Yes, I'm Miss Mello. There's a program coming up at the Silent Theater June 7th. That is Love on Me So Strong, the Blues of South LA, and I have a cameo in that. And there's a great bluesology community going on. Keep it bluesy.
Oh, you have my contact information, Drama Stage 1, yahoo.com. Attention, Earlene Anthony.
Okay, I just want to ask everyone to come out to the Vortex tomorrow where we'll be showing the film Watch Stack. 7 o'clock tomorrow. The address is
2341 East Olympic Boulevard. That's right at the corner of Santa Fe and Olympic.
Okay, it starts at
7 p.m.
Mm-hmm. And our condolence to the family of Bobby Zeno. We lost an important voice out there in radio jazz. Tuskegee Airmen's. Bobby, rest in peace. Now, I would like to extend a special thanks to Marlo White, Ariel Clymer, Willis Boyd, Shantae Duncan, Miss Mello, and my co-host, Earlene Anthony. Please listen to past shows of the Coomran Report on iTunes, Stitcher, Tumblr, Google, and Skidrow.la. Thank you for tuning in to the Coomran Report, and from your host, Melvin Ishmael Johnson, may the peace and blessings of the life-giving creative spirit be upon you and upon your family. I leave you with the song Butterfly by Willis and Shantae.